Welcome to the Man Room.
Welcome to the Man Room.
Welcome into the Man Room podcast. Thanks for joining us in the Man Room today. I am your host, Marcus Bridges. Make sure to check us out at the website, www.themanroompodcast.com. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, the RSS feed. We've also got the Facebook, Patreon set up, and you can Gmail us, because that's how I say it, themanroompodcast@gmail.com. And just want to jump right into this one because we're a little bit short on time today. I want to welcome a longtime friend and former colleague of mine to the show. Welcome to the Man Room, comedian Chris Castles. Thanks for joining me, man.
Hell yeah, I'm so pumped, dude.
It's been a really long time. You and I actually, we've only gotten to speak just over like Facebook Messenger for almost a decade now since you moved out of here. It's so good to have you just back in the same kind of environment that we used to deal with each other in all the time.
Oh my God. Actually, I learned so much from being on the Donkey Show. Can I say Can I say it?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not afraid to give people background. The Donkey Show is a radio show that I did for about 8 years. And my colleagues, Tanner and Drew, who are up in Portland doing morning radio now, were on that show for 14 years between the two of them. So we used to have you on as a guest weekly. And you were in some of our videos that we did, too. I mean, you worked with the Donkey Show a lot, which is one of the ways that you and I got hooked up. And you actually were the reason that I ever stepped on a comedy stage. You were the first person to really kind of grab me and shake me and make me do it.
The only one in the radio place that was worthy of the stage was Marcus.
Oh, stop that. Stop that. You're going to make me blush once again.
Sorry, Drew. Just not your calling, bro.
Well, I always had a lot of fun doing it, and we'll get to that and plenty more because you and I, just in having a little pre-show conversation on the phone yesterday, figured out that we've got so much to talk about and so much to catch up on, and I'm really excited for that. As you know, in the Man Room, one of the first things that we do is we crack open a cold adult beverage, and that is just to help us keep loose and also just enjoy the conversation a little bit more. What are you drinking on today?
I got a Texas Shiner Bock, baby.
Some good breweries out there in Texas for sure.
Oh my God, they have so much like German style beer. But I didn't know that about Texas. But Texas has like a lot of very specific beers to Texas because they have very Germanic roots.
Okay,
the state does.
I had no idea. See, that's total news to me. I had no idea that was the case. And that's cool because I like to jump into the German beers every now and then, the Doppelbocks and the lagers and stuff like that. I like German beers.
Oh, that's all they do out here. Yeah, there's a lot of German stuff. They actually there was a city where there's a language, a German Texan language that is dying now. It's pretty much gone, but there's a specific dialect out here that's like German Texas. I don't know. I've never heard anyone speak it.
That's kind of sounds like a party language. I don't know why. I just feel like that's a language you would hear at a party.
No, it's like two of the harshest accents ever. German and Texas. Well, yeah, like the water parks are called Schlitterbahn.
Okay.
Out here, like our big water parks, which is German for water slide.
Boy, it sounds like it's American for something completely different, but I really do like it. Well, I am drinking, of course, you're going to represent Texas, which is where you're at right now, joining us from Austin. I am going to represent Oregon, even though I'm not in Bend. I am drinking from a brewery in Bend called Boneyard. Having myself an RPM IPA because that's what you're going to find out of me is like mostly it's IPAs. That's where the extra weight in the neck and the gut comes from.
Oh yeah, those IPAs will get you.
And I mean, I couldn't be more Oregon unless I had a flannel shirt on with the beard and the IPA. But I love Boneyard. They actually, their lead brewmaster when they started their company had worked in the industry for like 20 years, and he had just slowly pieced together what they called a boneyard of old equipment, and that's how they started. And now that they've expanded to being able to can and distribute as widely as they have, they only use that old boneyard equipment for seasonal special releases. So I think it's a real cool thing that they do at the brewery, and that's Oregon for you. Oregon's always been, kind of at the forefront of the microbrew empire, and always doing fun things over here. So there's never going to be a shortage of good beer to talk about in the Man Room. And I also have some buddies that'll join us that'll talk a lot about Scotch too, which I've never really gotten into, but I mean, I can get drunk on anything. Just put it in front of me.
I drank it last night, but that's because it was Burns Night, which, if you don't know, is a Scottish holiday.
Oh, I did not know that.
So my girlfriend, yeah, either did I, but I date a British woman now, so now I know. And she bought some Scotch, and then I got into it a little early, and was reminded of some conversations I had last night.
Oh, okay.
Today.
Those are never the best ones to be reminded about, the ones you don't remember.
They were pleasant conversations. It worries me that I don't remember them.
Scotch will do that to you, man. So let's catch up a little bit. I mean, obviously, we're both drinking, so that's good. Yeah. We talked about a little bit about how we knew each other. Very first show I ever did stand-up comedy, I performed with you, Christine Levine, Andy Andrist in the basement of Diablo's here in Eugene, Oregon, which is no longer there, by the way. It's a Thai food restaurant. And it was one of the institutions in the Eugene nightlife, and I was just really sad to see it go. But that started kind of a spree of 5 or 6 years for me of doing some shows, being on stage, being fortunate enough to open for people like Brian Posehn and just like I said, I don't ever think about this much, and I apologize for that, but I have you to thank for that because I was so nervous, and I still am. Like, it's really weird to me that stand-up is one of those things that I just always get that weird fear right before I step on stage, regardless of how successful or bad the bits have been. Do you feel that still as a stand-up, or are you past that stage in your career? Because you do a lot. I mean, dude, you've performed how many thousands of shows at this point in your career?
I think like thousands of shows, and I don't really have a career to speak of, but
we can call it that.
Yeah. I still get super nervous. I think it's a good thing. I think that's part of it, is that you just, and people feel that way about other things they do, whether they fly planes or whatever. No, whatever the thing is you do where it's adrenaline. And I think that's the thing that I've learned is it doesn't go away. I learn how to deal with it. But yeah. I opened up for Brett Ernest. He is a comic from Jersey. He's in the Cobra Kai show.
Okay.
I don't know if you watch Cobra Kai. I don't. So.
I haven't seen it, but it seems to be all the rage right now, so I'll probably get into it. I did enjoy some Mr. Miyagi Karate Kid movies back in the day. So
yeah. So he came here, and I opened for him, and I got really nervous for that. But that's why I did good.
Right.
I had a good show because, he showed up, all the comics were wanting to meet him, and I just said, "Hey, what's up?" Hey, and then I just paced back and forth, and he's been doing it for 20 years, so he recognized that I was preparing, so he left me alone, and then I did well because my head was in it, and then that's what you have to do. But yeah, you're always super funny, man. That's great that you did that show at with Andy Andrist, Christine Levine. That's the first time you performed?
That was in you. Yeah, that was the first time I performed. Awesome. And I feel like I really was sharing the stage with some people that I had absolutely no business being there next to, but it was a lot of fun. I still remember it like it was yesterday. So, and I actually found some footage of it on an old camcorder of mine. And if I can ever afford to get the piece of equipment that allows me to transfer mini DV cassette tapes to a digital format, I will definitely put it out there because it's terrible. A lot of the jokes are cringy. I mean, it took place in 07 or 08 or something like that. So
my God. Was it that long ago?
It's been maybe 09. But
no, but still, I know that I performed in those years. It's just wow, that's so long ago.
Yeah, and I mean, it was even before you really started coming on the show as a regular on our radio show that we did. I mean, this was, I think I had met you maybe outside of the Black Forest or something like that after a local band show or something. I don't even really remember. What I do know is that most of the places that we used to do this stuff are closed down now. Taylor's, which we used to do Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Black Forest is gone. I knew that. Diablos, I mean, that's the first place I performed stand-up, I think, ever. Black Forest or Diablos. But I'm not like sad about Diablo's closing.
Yeah,
That place was such a hole. I performed there so much, both downstairs and upstairs. But man, that was such a C- bar.
yeah, it was. I had a punk rock band that played some shows there too, and it was literally good for nothing but not hearing anything for the rest of the night because it was kind of like playing inside of a tin can. And, you know, look, props to the people that had it. Like I said, it was kind of an institution in Eugene. If you didn't know or hadn't been to Diablo's, I would look at you with a side eye like, look, I know it's not the place I'm going to recommend, but why haven't you been there? Will they not let you in, you know?
Oh, God. I remember when I first started doing stand-up in Eugene, that was the only show in town, and it was every other Saturday. It was a showcase that Leanne Joshua Bryant, who was teaching comedy, would charge $5 a head for you to see her students perform. And so then I would go bug her and be like, hey, can I perform? And then she would let me. And then I was like beginning, I just started. But so I would always get like letters for like my rape jokes and stuff because they were just bad taste jokes. But anyway, that was the only game. There was no open mics. It was the only show you could do, which was every other Saturday. And now it's totally. I mean, COVID has changed everything, but pre-COVID, there was like a mic every night, at least one. I mean,
yeah, lots of really good local comedians here in town that are dedicated to having that comedy scene in Eugene, which has been lacking for a while now. I mean, obviously, COVID really capped it off, but it's been lacking for a while just because. The people that are out there doing it a lot of times they're out there working a full-time job too, and they're trying to support a family, and it's open mics, when you're doing 6 of those a week, I imagine it gets a little bit taxing. You're staying up late, trying to get up early, go work a job, then stay up late again to do a Wednesday open mic. It can't be easy, man, and it's hard to sustain it. And what you need is good comedians, but you also need the ability to perform in front of an audience, which they haven't had. So
no, well, the other problem is on any smaller market stand-up scene is that you're not rubbing shoulders with the talent line. And this isn't to say anything about the comics in Eugene. I don't know. I haven't been there, but I know this is true about smaller markets. Is that you're not really. Your bar is set in an odd space. And so if you don't have anyone who's really great, then you're not pushing to that level. So I know for myself that when I moved here to Austin, the talent pool was larger, and it forced me to realize, and it took years to realize, oh, I'm bad at this. And it's not that I was necessarily like horrible. I was in that smaller atmosphere, and I wasn't able to grow anymore.
Sure. And we talked about that, you kind of being maxed out in Eugene, and how did that affect your move to Texas? And like when you finally learned that, like, did you feel yourself become like a better comedian? Did you write better? Was your process different? How did you change from Eugene to Austin? It was something I actually had written down right here to ask you. So I'm glad that you got us there.
Yeah, well, I had to become a better person. Was part of it. I was a real garbage person, and it took years. And I'm not saying that I'm like a perfect person now, but there was just a lot of like character flaws and things that I really had to work on. And comedy was helpful in me growing. But as I grew as a person, I got a lot better. I would say that in the last couple of years, I've really started to feel like coming into my stride as a performer.
That's awesome. And especially now that Austin seems to be the place that comedy is literally moving to Austin right now. We talked about it on the phone a little bit yesterday. Joe Rogan's already there, and he's not as much into the comedy scene as some of these other names like Dave Chappelle and Tom Segura, and the list goes on.
Yeah, but Rogan's a heavyweight in terms of like, he's industry.
Yes.
He's,
entertainment in general.
He's one of the, I mean, whether you like his stand-up or not, he's a big part of stand-up comedy and a big influence on it.
Yep. And from what it sounds like, I listen to his podcast a lot because he has a lot of interesting people on there. And it sounds to me like he's going to open a club pretty soon that he wants to be in effect like the Comedy Store was in LA, where all those big names are basically filling out the open mics each night. And if that comes to fruition, how cool would that be to have that planted right in your lap? Because I'm sure you would be able to get in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard he's going to open like a ranch so that it'll be like an outdoor open thing, so that it essentially, if this COVID thing or whatever new thing they hoist upon us creates new rules and stuff, he's trying to be ahead of that. But they already kind of have this. Kill Tony's at Antone's, which is downtown, and then they have been they're working together with Big Laugh Network or something like that, and they're running shows at the Vulcan because Ron White lives here. So then you have like Brian Redband, who runs the Joe Rogan Experience, or he was one of the people that started it, and he works with Tony Hinchcliffe to do Kill Tony. He's been doing shows there, and he's been bringing Tony Hinchcliffe, Joe Rogan, Ron White, and I mean, dude, I've performed at the open mic there. It's like a small room,
really,
where like if there's no seat that's more than 100 feet from the stage. I mean, the stage is just right there, so no matter where you're sitting, you're like right up close to these performers. I haven't seen Rogan, but I did a show, and after my set, they called up the next comic, and it was Tony Hinchcliffe. I was like, oh, shit. And I was like, oh, good. It wasn't just this group of strangers that watched me bomb. A good comic watched me do it, too. But then I saw him struggle in the same room, and I was like, he did way better, obviously, but it validified it. And that's the thing. I was like, I had performed and felt like, oh, I don't like my set. This was a tough room. And then he went up and he struggled, and I watched him go through it. He handled it differently. And I was like instantly like, oh, it wasn't just me. Look, this more experienced comic than me is also struggling. So I was like, okay, I felt better. And that's that kind of speaks to what I was saying. When you're around that other talent, you learn so much more.
Sure. Yeah, man, and tough crowds are just that. They're almost impossible to figure out when you're kind of if you can't separate from yourself a little bit and pull back and kind of see it for what it is. Because, look, everybody that's used to being on stage or hosting or anything like that, you get the immediate feel right in the middle of your chest of whether or not this crowd is into you or into it or into whatever's going on. And then a lot of times that tends to kind of direct your show a little bit if you let it engulf you and you work too hard on the crowd, or you think too much about your material, and then you're just digging yourself a hole. But we've all been there, man, and that's tough rooms, tough people. We used to do a gong show every Monday night at a college bar, like a college grind time bar.
Worst shows on the planet,
and dude. It went on for like years. I mean, it was something that we did at this college bar, which, by the way, they lost their liquor license, which shouldn't surprise anybody.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, and then it became much worse than what it was, where there was like bartenders slipping Mickeys to chicks. And they were turning around security cameras, and like it just wasn't a good situation. But we would go in there on a Monday when there was nobody but other comedians and maybe a couple really, really drunk college chicks. And I mean, try to tell jokes to other comedians when nobody else in the place is listening. And sometimes they would leave the TV on in the background, so you're performing in front of Monday Night Football. It's just
classic organ show stuff there.
So that's another thing I was going to ask. How do the crowds stack up? Because in Oregon, I've had drunk people stand up and yell stuff at me. I've had, what clearly seemed to be high people wander in off the street and have a little bit of a manic episode. Do you see the same stuff in Texas? Is it because you're in a place like Austin, which is kind of notorious for live performance and shows? Are the crowds better, more well behaved, or is it kind of the same across the board?
It's kind of the same. I mean, you're going to get the same stuff. The thing is actually really interesting to watch all these LA comics come out here, and I think that they're not. Austin, even though it's an up-and-coming city and it's a happening spot, it's still not like a big city. Mm-hmm. So the crowds it's not like LA where everyone's trained and they know the deal. In LA, people go to shows, they know the deal. And so they're great crowds in LA. Especially because they're like, anyone can drop in and all that. I mean, it's a culture there. Mm-hmm. Comedy is part of the culture in that city. So Austin is a little. You're rolling the dice at any show. Any drunk, oil money redneck can be there and be like, "This is my fucking. I own this fucking city." Like there's a lot of that. But then also, I mean, for the most part, it's good. A lot of the shows are good. But then if you go up north, for example, in North Austin, or as I call it, South Dallas, you'll go to a bar, man, and I feel like I'm right back in Springfield.
Oh, yeah?
No bullshit. I performed at an all-female show last week. I hosted for an all-female show. Last minute, they called me in, and it was at a bar that still allowed smoking. So I was like in the future and the past at the same time, bro. And but it was crazy. It felt like I was just in a bar in Springfield.
Right.
So that's still a thing. Rural rooms are that's just a national thing.
Right.
Yeah, as soon as as soon as you get out of Austin, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes out of Austin, you're in fucking Texas.
Right, where there's actually like an oil rig you see pumping in a field and like a tumbleweed blows by. It's like Texas.
Well, it's also just very conservative. So, for example, I host a show every other Saturday right now. I produce it, and it's in Lakeway, which is the west side of Texas, west side of Austin. It's where a lot of the richer people live. But that show is so funny. It's in a sports bar, Castro's Bar and Grill. If you're out in Austin, check it out.
Yeah, for sure.
And, but if you make a joke about coronavirus there that acknowledges it as a real thing, they're going to sit there silently with their arms crossed. If you make fun of wearing masks, they will fucking be like, yeah, because none of them are fucking wearing masks, or they don't give a shit. They're doing it because they're told to, and they don't, So it's crazy. It's very conservative. Texas is very conservative.
It's amazing to me, and without getting overly political on this program, because it's not something I want to do on this podcast, but I've always kind of found it.
What do you think? Let's hear your opinions.
I've always found it a little bit funny that people can subscribe to like such Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, and completely let that like take over their lives and live their life only by that code, rather than just doing whatever the fuck you want in a free country, which is, I feel like it's really undersold. Like, no, you don't have to do what they're saying. You can do whatever the fuck you want. It's really fun. You should try it.
There was this comic, Ariel Norman, a very funny comic here in Austin, and all of her act is a lot of her act is about calling out people's prejudices. She's a lesbian woman. She's out. She talks about gender. She does podcasts about gender politics and all that. Anyway, that being said, she had performed, and people will either really love her or they fucking won't. And after the set, someone was like, "Hey," after the show, someone was like, "Hey, great show. I thought everyone was good except for that one, that one comic." And I remember it was, I told that person, I was like, "Hey," I was like, "Why? Is it because she was liberal?" And she's all, "Yeah." And I was like, "Hey, if you're fucking American, then you should be fucking stoked that she performed. You should be fucking stoked that you went out to a show in your own town where someone had a completely different idea than yours. And because that's what fucking being an American is fucking people saying different things, and that you should be stoked about that." And I remember seeing her slow conservative fucking wheels going. She's all like, "Oh, wait a minute." And it's like, yeah, being an American isn't about being like, "This is my side," and anyone who doesn't believe in it's an idiot. It's like, no, you get to think and feel how you want, and you should be excited when you meet other people who feel completely differently and feel liberated to express themselves, even if you disagree with them.
And comedy, to a little bit lesser of an extent, is the same way. It's people going out and expressing their thoughts, feelings, reactions in their own way, in their own voice, on the stage by themselves, and really putting themselves out there. People are always trying to push the boundaries in comedy, or say something that's never been said before, or say it a different way. And that's one of the things I really like about it. I do feel like it's one of those professions, if you want to call it that. For me, I haven't been on stage in God knows how long, but it's one of those things that pushes you to always try to be better. And it's one of the reasons I was often criticized for this, and I don't want to get in too much to my process because, like I said, it's non-existent. But for that every Monday night gong show that we used to do, I used to have new material every Monday night. I would never try the same thing twice. And you guys, and you just rolled your eyes at me right now. People that have like a true writing process look at me like I was batshit crazy when I tell them that every Monday I just wanted to have something new, because you really should be going to a gong show kind of working on good material, you know?
Oh, no, you should always be doing stuff that's new. I mean, and that's getting way into the stand-up process, but I think it's true with art in general. You should be pushing yourself to try new things, and it's just more fun. It's super fun when you say something new, and it feels risky. You know, you're like, oh, is this going to work or not? But I think that the people that are constantly doing new stuff are the ones who are, I find, more interesting.
Yeah.
But then again, to be fair to the process, if you're working on a bit or you're working on a set, then it's helpful to repeat it and do it. So, like you said, everyone's process is different.
Yeah, and for me, it was kind of weird because, you know, the Gong Show was attached to the radio show, and so I sort of felt like each week we were going out there trying to produce a product that was not the same as last week. And that just because I was involved in it from the radio side, I think is one of the reasons I felt like that. I didn't want the same people to come out every week and hear me do the same joke for like 5 weeks.
That was a big part of it too. I feel like I also did new material all the time because I was doing the same rooms. But dude, I remember every time you bring up the Gong Show, I keep wanting to bring up how, oh man, so many stories come up. But I just remember one time it was super packed, and most of the people that were there for the show to end so that they could dance or try and drug some young girl. And so it was just packed with all these kids. No one was listening. And I just remember for like 15 minutes, I just insulted them. All of them. I was just like, you look like a fucking cunt. Look at you. I bet you're not going to fuck him, are you? You're just here to get his free drink. And no one, like, there was a few people that like were listening and laughing. For the most part, the whole crowd is ignoring me. And, oh man, that is horrible. Some of the worst sets I've ever had were at that show.
Yeah. Yeah, I had actually, and now that you've broken the ice on that word, I'm just going to go ahead and say it because I have a story that comes to mind from that bar as well, where one of the comics that was up right before me had a little bit of a going back and forth with this woman, and they were kind of, you know, she was yelling at them from the bar, and the comic was getting back in her face, and it kind of ended that guy's set. And they called me up. And I just kind of casually said, like, all right, so we're going to go ahead and hope that nothing like that happens during my set. And she was still standing at the bar, and she looked up at me and she goes, so what? You going to call me a cunt? And I said, you said it.
Well, I personally identify as a cunt because I date a British person, and they call me it enough that
it's in your vocabulary
like I'm
now.
Owning it at this point, so I can say cunt.
Well, let's talk about that. Use that as a good segue. I know that things have definitely changed in your life since you moved to Austin. You told me yesterday that you are a homeowner, and as a first-time homeowner myself, I'll say congratulations. Totally don't think that I'm cut out for it, even though I like it. I just don't really know what to do when stuff breaks. But I'm trying to learn that. How's homeownership treating you?
Well, let me just back up, okay, because that was a private conversation, and I might have overstated. When I say I'm a homeowner, my girlfriend owns the house, so I'm actually kind of a renter. And but so like I like to tell people, I'm basically just one whiskey-fueled conversation about the legalization of sex work in America away from being homeless.
Well, all right, that works, and I'm sorry if I kind of surprised you with that one, but as you can tell, yesterday
I was just joking. I was joking, but I love it, man, and I mean, we definitely both own it, and I mean, she owns it. It's all. I mean, I just can't fuck up, and but I like it. My dad is a millwright, or was a millwright, so I learned a lot of handy stuff when I was younger. I just saw how much back problems he had and was like, I'm never going to do real work. I don't want to do that kind of work. But I did learn a lot, and I find that has kind of started to come back up. And man, we turned the garage into a music studio. My friend came. I had some contractors obviously help, but We built a big awning over for a carport. We built a deck, like a back deck area. I've put up a structure in my backyard that's going to be a storage unit. It's a lot of work. I'm still working on it, but it's really kind of brought out my handy side. I'm not that I'm like super great at it, but I understand. Sometimes it's like scary, but I'm kind of into it, dude. I like all the tasks that come with homeownership, and we have an acre and a quarter, and we're backed up to a creek. So I also just like have like land management, cutting down. We have like 120 trees or something like that.
Wow.
So I'm all like snipping and like I got a fucking riding lawnmower, dude. I was like, dude, the day I got a riding lawnmower, I was like, dude, I could dig this like fucking dad life shit, bro.
Just have a complete shift in your life's work right there, and just get to mowing lawns.
Dude, it was the best. It's got a cup holder in it, dude. You know how pumped I was the first time I mowed my lawn with a beer. I was like, this is tight, dude.
Oh man, that's funny. You know, I have riding lawnmowers for me. I have a little bit of it's almost a little bit of like a mild trauma, and I'll tell you why. So I started mowing my parents' lawn when I was like 8 as a kid. And from the time that I was 8 till the time I was 18, it was my job once a week, regardless of how much I bitched or anything. I just had to do it. And the lawn also grew by about fourfold over that time, where my dad just kept taking out shit and putting grass there, and taking out more shit and putting more grass. And I was just mowing, and I had this push mower. We lived on a hill with a big incline, and so I was lugging this thing up the hill. And I'm not kidding you. I graduated high school, in June, late May, whenever it is. And when I was out getting ready to come down to Eugene and go to the University of Oregon for college, my dad went out and bought himself a riding lawnmower because he didn't have his little bitch to do it ever again. And so I've always kind of like, I still have the push mower, and I feel like I do it to keep myself honest because I know how mad it made me when I saw the luxury that was the riding mower.
I completely understand. Dude, I used to I grew up on a 65-acre farm out in Pleasant Hill. And to divide the property, they had to put in all these Christmas trees, 35,000 to be exact. And so every summer, my brother and sister and I would have to mow on it was like a four-wheeler with a PTO. We would have to like mow in between all of the trees and then weed eat in between them all 35,000.
Oh my God, dude.
I did that like 4 summers.
Oh
I'm
my
not
God.
even lying. So I'm not a huge fan of weed eaters as a result.
Yeah, I got some weird trauma with weed eaters too. My dad when I was super young and 8 or 9, he didn't trust me with the weed eater. He would go out and edge the lawn, and then he would have me follow up and mow it. And one time I was just walking through the property, like 50 yards away from him, and a big like golf ball sized rock hit me right in the calf. And, it's like a 9, 10-year-old just takes you out, and you think you're going to bleed to death right there on the pavement. And the weed whacker had caught that thing and flung that rock that far and hit me. And like for 2-3 years, even though my dad never laid a finger on me, never did anything like that, I swore that he was mad at me and he threw that rock.
I can't tell you how many times I've hit myself in the face with the rock while weed eating. And you're like, who am I mad at? I'm mad, but who am I mad at? Yeah. This inanimate object?
That's obviously going to throw shit into the air at high speed. Like, I mean, it's built to do that. So, oh, man.
Oh, my God.
So, what else is going on in your life, man? I'm going to be pretty vague here, but I think you know kind of where I'm going right now. You got the stand-up thing. You got work. You told me about something else on the phone that I'm kind of just going to let you talk to us about because – I'll be honest, that's the only thing I've thought about since we've talked yesterday, and I just...
I know. Well, it's a good thing you're sitting down. So, all right, so, well, first off, I don't have to go to work now. I just got a text.
So we're open-ended.
So we're golden.
Nice.
We're golden.
Nice.
So, you want the good news or the bad news first?
Oh, man, I hate it when people ask that because... You normally I'm normally the person that will take the bad news first because then I get to leave with a good thought. But sometimes if the bad news is way worse, it just supersedes the good news anyway. So
well, I'm going to start with the good news.
Okay. All right.
Choose for you. Good news is I found a lump on my rib cage and I don't have health insurance.
That's good news.
Yeah, that's the good news. The bad news is I have a 3rd-class felony possession of more than 5 and less than 50 pounds of marijuana in a small county in West Texas. So I'm facing 2 to 10 years in prison.
Oh my God, Chris. What the fuck? I forgot about Texas and the way that they treat marijuana. Is it? Holy
so
shit.
Hopefully the lump is cancer. And then I could just be dead.
Oh God, don't say that. Don't put those ideas out there. So, I want to hesitate to ask too many questions here because I know that obviously with this being pending, you're kind of limited as to where you can go. But 2 to 10 years. But you have a clean record in Texas, right?
Yeah, I am. I've never been charged with any. I've no criminal record to speak of.
Right. So maybe you get off with like a slap on the wrist, seeing as like, I mean, look, the international standpoint on cannabis is changing. Same thing with the national standpoint. I mean, I feel like Texas, it's not going to be, it definitely wasn't going to be one of the first few states to legalize or decriminalize, but I can't wrap my head around it being last.
It'll probably be the last.
You think so? Wow.
Well, I mean, yeah. Texas likes being Texas.
Yeah, it's true. Do they know how much more fun they could have if they were Texas with weed? I mean,
they're already having fun. It's a racket, man. I mean, the criminal justice system is a institution, and they make money off convictions, and that's it. It's cops and robbers, baby.
It's ridiculous because, I mean, you're talking about, I worked at a dispensary. I worked in the cannabis industry in Oregon for the last 5 years of my life. And 5 to 50 pounds to me is like, well, are you going to put that in the van or can you fit that in the back of your car?
It's funny because when they pulled me over, they were like, so do you have any more, or after they discovered it, they were like, do you have any more on you or in you? And I was like, officer, you found 46 pounds of marijuana in the trunk of my car. Do you think I have like a joint in my asshole? Because I heard how boring jail is? What the fuck?
This is my personal use stash.
I was like, hey, man, I got another one. I think I got another pound in my balls, but you're going to have to suck it out through my dick. No, I didn't say that.
Thank God, because I hear they get a little bit heavy-handed on you in Texas, too. They might beat you in the street, right?
Scary, dude. I mean, that it was a state trooper. He was out. He was out for blood. It was also the day after Trump lost.
Oh, okay. So tensions were high in Texas.
Oh, dude, the jailers were like, oh, man, we're getting a lot of people in today. I was like, you motherfuckers. All those fucking dudes with ponytails. I mean, I was definitely profiled as a Biden supporter.
Oh, man.
Which I'm not. I don't support. I've never supported any president. But, yeah, I was profiled for sure. They violated my Fourth Amendment rights. And I have a nice case against it. And, I mean, fingers crossed. With the legal team I have, it could be dismissed. I mean, that is the best case scenario, is that it's dismissed.
Sure. Well, I'm pulling for you, dude, because that is a big issue, and it's smart for people to know their rights. Like, if you're listening to this, and Chris mentions they violated your his Fourth Amendment right, and you just don't have any clue what that is, go do yourself a favor and study it, because you can save yourself from spending a lot of time in jail or prison that you don't deserve by understanding exactly what your rights as an American citizen are. And there's not very many people that do.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is, if you're listening and you don't know, is first off, never admit to anything. Even if they're like, hey, do you know why I pulled you over? The answer is no. And let them tell you. Because right there, everything you're saying is going against you. So it's best to never admit anything. And then also, don't get out of the car if they ask you to, which I did. And I mean, he said he smelled marijuana, but he didn't. He smelled fear. And he was smart. He was an intuitive dude, and yeah, he knew what he was doing. He knew he was going to find something. Well, and he's just
waiting
like
for. Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, he's just waiting for you to incriminate yourself. And that's that, we call it intuitive, but really it's like through that fear, you almost get like a little bit of truth serum in you where you're like, maybe if I'm honest with this guy, he'll take it easy on me, and that's
I was trying to be amicable and like nice, but it didn't matter. He was very like, it was an intense situation. Let's just say that. Another funny thing about it, or that I thought was funny, because even in the moment, like I'm a pretty affable person, and I would even go as far to say I'm pretty adaptable. So even in a situation like that, I can keep my cool and not lose my head. So I was being very cool, and then talking to the other officer while he searched my car. We were just talking about the wind because it was a windy day. And then I remember at one point when they got in the trunk and then he opened up one of the duffel bags, I just turned to the other officer and I go, "All right, man, you can go ahead and put those cuffs on me now."
You gotta have yourself a little tagline with these experiences, right? Or they just don't sit in the memory quite as well.
I mean,
that sucks,
plus, I've
man.
never been to jail before, so it was, it's an experience.
Right? It is an experience, and it sucks that that's what it was for. Like, I got to be honest with you, I didn't even think about that because...
What did you think? What were you thinking? Child molestation? What were you thinking?
I honestly figured that you probably popped off at a mic and somebody tossed a swing at you and you decked them. That's what I thought, simple assault or something like that,
I fucking love that you thought that.
I don't know you as a fighter or really even somebody that likes confrontation, but I've also seen you get a few pops in you, and then, every comedian does it. You get a little bit toasted on stage.
Oh, you've seen me be like a dick to people.
Right, where it's like you hear it's come out of somebody that you know, and you're like, wow, they're either a little bit drunk or something really pissed them off right then, and they said that thing, and I hope they don't get punched for it, That's kind of what I figured, because I figured also you fit in very well in Eugene with your comedy, and I thought maybe because Texas be Texas, that maybe somebody down there might have, like you said, about the mask or about COVID or something, they might have taken offense to some of your comedy, and maybe you had to get real,
Well, when I first started going out and doing stand-up again, after the initial lockdown, I was rusty. Everyone was rusty. And the scene completely changed. It's so weird. I didn't know any of the comics. The open mics were filled with all these people from other towns. None of the comics that used to be out were out. It was like this whole like dystopian vibe. And one of the very first showcase I did was fucking packed up in Georgetown, where they don't give a fuck about about all this stuff, right? So it's like pretty big bar. I would say there's 100 people in there, maybe a little less. But packed, and people were ready to be entertained. This was like some of the first shows happening, maybe in the country. I don't know.
Right.
And so I go up there, and man, I was having a great set because I was kind of unloading. It was like I'd been edging, for months, and I finally just got to blow my comedy load. And but this is like a very conservative part of, like I said, South Dallas. It's a conservative part of Austin, and one of the jokes I made was, I said, Confederate flags. I don't know how you guys feel. Like, I personally don't care. If you have a Confederate flag, that's fine. I don't care. But if we're going to be taking down these symbols of oppression, then let's go all the way. I was like, how about the Walmart flag? I go, do you think that's a sun on there? No, that's that's the asshole of the Asian child you're fucking every time you buy something made in China.
Jesus.
But then they all like cheered for that for the wrong reasons, probably. They're like, oh yeah, fuck Asians or whatever. And then I go, oh, I could take it one step further. And then I knew I shouldn't say this, but man, Marcus, I love saying things I know I shouldn't say.
That's why I thought maybe you punched somebody.
No, well, dude, I got lucky I didn't get beat up this night. I then went and said, why don't we go ahead and take down the American flag?
Oh yeah, that's not a Texas quote.
Not like that. It went into the whole bar just started yelling. The only people that were into it, the owner was a Mexican woman, and then there was some other Latin people there that were like looking at me like, "Yep." And I went, and then two tables like families got up and left.
Wow.
And it was like a bar fight. I ruined the show. The rest of the show, I felt so bad for the headliner. He was all talking. He's like, this is my first time doing 30 minutes, man. I'm so pumped. And I was like, right on, man. It's going to be a good time. And then I just went and just basically started a bar fight. And
you just mushroom stamped his first ever headlining gig.
It was horrible, dude. The rest of my set, I just kept yelling about like all of the atrocities we've committed as a country in Central and South America and all of our foreign policy and how our standard of living is only good at the expense of the rest of the world's misery and like all this stuff. And like I said, I had a few Latin people being like, yep, totally. I don't know if it's that funny or not, but you're saying a lot of truthful things.
Right.
Anyway, I haven't repeated that joke since then.
Yeah, time and setting, I'm sure, right? Come on back to Portland and tell it, and I'm sure you'll get swept up in the riots that are burning down the city every night. They'll love you for that shit.
Yeah, they'd riot at my show, but for different reasons. Like, fuck yeah, what he said, burn this bar down.
Yeah, it's real. That's for sure.
For the most part, man, I would say I've become much less about trying to upset people than I was before. I think that was part of the stand-up thing, was like, yeah, I want to say something, challenges everyone, and now I'm like, if I'm gonna do that, my intention is to be funny, and it used to be more to like push buttons, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm less on that. I do that less.
Sure. Well, I think that comedians appreciate that button pushing nature of you, but for the crowd at large that aren't comedians, they probably they don't quite understand that concept of that kind of comedy, like that avenue of being a stand-up comedian is a tough one. And there's people out there that master it, do it really well. But I think that it's a lot like insult comedy to me. It's like, man, that's a tough lane anymore. Because everybody's buttons are already pushed. Everybody's already insulted. Everybody's already offended. Like, when you come to the show with that, it's hard to further that because it's already at a fever pitch, just thanks to the last year,
It has to be really funny. I mean, I still push buttons. I like doing that, but it has to be the end goal, or it ultimately just has to be very funny, or it's not fun.
Which I'm hoping people understand with this podcast. If it's not funny, it's not going to be fun. So you better fucking laugh at it, okay?
Yeah, because otherwise I don't think anything's off limits as long as your intention is to be funny.
So while we were on the subject a little bit of weed, I was going to ask about, fighting the good fight up there in Texas, and how hard was it to get your first connect down there with the Attitude? Were you like super nervous to go out and try to find a dime bag, or were you already well enough connected?
Do you remember Bardo? Did you ever meet Bardo?
I remember the name. I really do, for some reason.
So, well, he performed. So the person I moved with down here I met him at my open mic at the Green Room in Austin, or in Eugene. Mm-hmm. And so I moved with him, so he had access, but it definitely was a different vibe because, Eugene's culture, Oregon's culture, it wasn't legal when I left. It wasn't recreational when I had left.
Right. Just medicinally, but barely even medicinally decriminalized.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and then I go back and it's like this. It's like, what the fuck is going on? There's like people living in bongs and shit, and I'm just like, everywhere I go, people are just like pulling weed out in the street, and it's like, okay, I get it, it's legal, but like, do you have to carry it around in jars in your pocket? Like, it was crazy. It blew every time I visited Oregon, it would blow my mind how legal it is there.
Yeah,
which then makes it seem like crazy that I'm in the trouble I'm in now.
Right.
It's like, what? This is like basic. If I would have been pulled over a state over, it would have been like penicillin. It's like, what are we talking about here? But
it really blows me away that is a thing still. I mean, we got to hope for that federal legalization, and just hope that whenever it does come down from a federal level, and look, I've got really high hopes for it. I'm super high on the fact that maybe Biden and this administration, because they're going to be doing so many things that they want the good public opinion. They want those polls up. They want their approval ratings to be up. Maybe that's something that they decide to do. Maybe they federally legalize cannabis finally. I don't know. I can only hope. We're going to take a quick break real quick, Chris, because I got to hit the head and I need to get another beer real quick. So stand by.
Okay, let's do it.
Stay tuned while we grab a refill. The Man Room continues next.
Introducing all new COVID Immune Boost Juice, the brand new carbonated sports drink for kids that says, "Cut it out, COVID, my immune system is boosted." Try all of our 10 exciting flavors, like Sarsberry, sweet, tangy, and packed with enough hydroxychloroquine to clean your industrial fish tank. Or try Social Distance Dairy, gluten-free and made from all your favorite nut milks and cheeses. Your breath will surely keep people 6 feet away or more. COVID Immune Boost Juice carbonated sports beverage for kids. Hug your friends again. And now from the creators of COVID Immune Boost Juice carbonated sports drink for kids comes Quarantine Claw, the immune system boosting alcoholic beverage for consensually quarantined adults. It's 10% alcohol by volume, so if you're sick of being quarantined, just stop making memories and black out. Quarantine Claw. What day is it? Warning, these statements not evaluated by the FDA, the CDC, the WHO, Drs. Birx, Fauci, or Gupta, the AARP, NASA, the NBA, MLB, NFL, or the NFLPA.
Welcome to the Man Room.
Welcome back into the Man Room. Thanks for joining us tonight. Check out the podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts. Of course, you can find us at our website, www.themanroompodcast.com. Email us. Always love to hear from you guys. themanroompodcast@gmail.com. And make sure to get subscribed to that RSS feed so every time we release something, you can be right on top of it. Comedian Chris Castles joining me in the Man Room from Austin, Texas. Dude, once again, I'm so happy to have you on here. It's been so good catching up with you already. I feel like I could talk to you for another 4 hours, but I'm not going to keep you that long. Dude, I'm so happy to hear that things are going as well for you as they seem to be, other than the charges that we talked about. I wrote this down because I really believe it to be true. We talked about all these big comedians moving into Austin, Texas. We talked about how it's kind of like this transformation that's happening. I think I really do feel it like in my chest that this is where your career blows up. Like, this is where you're starting to rub shoulders with some of those people that can really look at you and see the talent and actually have the connections to get you places I think you deserve to be. Are you wanting to tour? Are you wanting to start this and just be like a full-time stand-up comedian? Is that where you're headed?
You know, I was talking earlier about how when I moved here, I wanted to be a better comedian. But then, and filmmaker and all that stuff. But then I realized, I need to become a better person, right? And it's all connected. But yeah, man, I've really I've become a better show producer. There's definitely all the potential in the world for me to make money. I have been making money as a stand-up comedian, and also, man, I got some big stuff coming up. I know that you know that I work with Andy Andrist, but me and Andy and Doug Stanhope, Paul Provenza, we are all bringing Andy's first comedy special to light. So it is being shopped around right now.
Really?
And I am the producer of it. I produced it. I got dragged into it last October. We filmed it out at Doug's house. I was like, Andy was like touring and he was down here in Texas to practice for it. And he hadn't even invited me to the show. And I was like, all right, man, cool. Well, come do some shows down here. I tried to book him on some things down here. And then he crashed in a tent in my backyard. And then like I found out, like Paul called me and he's like, fucking Andy, goddamn it, he doesn't even fucking have a camera crew, blah. And then Andy called me. He's like, I didn't know I was supposed to have a camera crew. Doug said he's producing it, but he didn't tell me, blah. And I was like, yeah, you gotta fucking get a camera crew, dude. It's your special. So a week before his special goes to shoot, I become the producer and hire the camera crew, and then went out to Doug's place in Arizona, and then we filmed for 2 nights. Christine Levine opened for him one night, and then Junior Stopka opened for him another night. And then Paul directed, and Doug hosted. And so we have that out, dude. It's cut. I learned the entire process of a film from doing it, from the beginning, getting everyone together, the production, and then the ending, the post, paying a color house, paying the audio house. I mean, it's really expensive, by the way, to make a movie. And the legal end, I have lawyers now. And that was a big thing about coming to Austin, was that I wanted to meet people that had money, that produced films, that were cinematographers, directors, lawyers, all these different people. And now I know those people. The documentary with Andy is still like in the works.
Oh, is it?
What's that?
I didn't. So I had heard that was going to happen, but then I had not heard anything else about it for a while. So that's great.
I moved when I moved here. I moved here on the tail of that. I was like, okay, I filmed this documentary. We got this big director, Paul Provenza, to agree to make the movie. And I thought, I was like, oh yeah, here I go. I'm going to go be a comedian. And then that movie will come out. I'll get fucking famous and get booked off of it. And I'm good to go. And that's really what I thought. And I even drove to Doug's house on my way out of Oregon. I drove to Doug's house, stayed at his house for a week, and we filmed a bunch of interviews and stuff at Doug's house before I came to Texas. And then, so I stayed with Doug for a week, and then I came to Texas. And so I was like, fuck yeah, dude. I got here. I'm like, I just stay with Doug Stanhope. Like, I'm going to be the shit. And then I came here, and it's like, yeah, no one gives a fuck, dude. You're still an open mic comedian. And then I was like you. I was like, a year went by, and I was like, what's up with this movie? And I remember I got on the phone with Paul, and Paul was like, well, we got to produce it. Someone has to pay. And I was like, I thought you'd do that. But it turns out Paul's a creative. He's not a producer. And so I then met a producer here, learned how to raise money. Me and that person raised $30,000.
Wow.
For the film. Yeah, I'd never done anything like that before. And then that person embezzled $15,000 from the project.
Shit. Of course.
A project about child molestation, by the way.
Jesus Christ, man.
But then I got to, I learned so much, Marcus, because when I realized that person was embezzling the money, I went to their lawyer. And I was like, hey, the lawyer on the project. I was like, hey, because they were friends, and I knew the lawyer, but we weren't like close. So I wasn't sure how they'd respond. So I called him and was like, hey, so been looking at the bank accounts, and I'm pretty sure some funny stuff here. And he goes, how much did he take from you? And I was like, what?
He just knew right off the bat that it would happen.
I go, you knew that he was stealing? And he goes, oh yeah, he's a bad dude. And I go, what? Why didn't you tell me? And he goes, well, I didn't know you were doing business with him. And I go, you're the lawyer on this film. And he goes, I am?
What?
And I go, yeah, your name's all over the paperwork. And he goes, it is? And the guy had just been signing this dude's name.
Wow, dude. So is this guy cooling his heels in the clink yet?
No. It was all settled out of court. I didn't get all the money back, but I got most of it back. And I'm technically, we're cool.
Good. Okay. Well, it's as long as it came to a solution that you're okay with. That's what matters. And
yeah,
the specifics of which a lot of times when those things quote settle out of court, the general public doesn't get to know the specifics, and that's just part of it. So I get that.
I signed something. We signed something as the company that we wouldn't badmouth the person, and that person helped me do a lot. I learned a lot from that person. From other stuff that we did, and then also from that experience, I learned a super lot. And then also that lawyer became my friend, and so now he helps with all my entertainment law. So another thing that I did here is there's a very funny comedian who lives here named Tai Nguyen, and he'd only been doing. He's a Vietnamese guy. Look him up, Tai Nguyen, TAINGUYEN. You can look up his set on Kill Tony, which he did 5 years ago. Okay. So funny. He crushed it. And he wanted to do an hour special. And he'd only been doing comedy for 2 years. Not even 2 years. And I was like, really? And he kept talking about it. And then this other guy wanted me to do my hour special. And I was like, I'm not ready. So eventually, this guy's bugging me to do an hour. This guy wants to record his hour. I put them together, and we ended up booking the Stateside Paramount, one of the biggest, most prestigious venues here in Austin, right on Congress downtown, in front of the Capitol building. We booked it and sold it out, and filmed this guy's special, who had only been doing stand-up for 2 years, and he did a great job. I mean, you can tell it's a young comics special.
Sure.
But yeah, he got the cover. We sold it. I was just unprecedented. People
That's
were like,
awesome.
"What the fuck?" Yeah, all these comics came out just to see if he was like. They were like, "All right, we're gonna go and see what the fuck happens." Because what? We see you at open mics, and now you're like. They were like, "Who asked you? Like, how did you get this opportunity?" And it's like, we just
did it.
We just emailed the venue.
Yeah.
And we're like, how much does it cost to rent it? So I'm that special is coming out soon. And then a subsequent documentary about us doing that.
That's great.
So like I have like 5 films in the process. Everything I came out here to do in Texas, I have done, except for, of course, go to jail. That wasn't one of my plans.
But you did it anyway, so good on you, man.
So I don't mean to like just go on and on and on, but to bring it back to your point, yeah, I do feel like that I'm in a good position here in Austin, and that blowing up or whatever, my coming into myself as a filmmaker and a comedian, I think that I'm in a great position to do it. And that's not because of my surroundings. That is only going to increase my chances and abilities and opportunities. But it's all because I've worked really hard, man, at wanting these things and doing it. And I've done all these things. And so, you know, I want to take the time to thank myself for taking a chance on myself, because it's been rough, man. Getting that guy embezzling money from me. So many different things have happened. Infighting, pissing. Dude, I came here and pissed in the pool. I pissed every fucking comic off as soon as I showed up. I showed up and everyone was rooting for me. I was really well set up. And as soon as I showed up, I pissed off everyone. And I have been virtually a pariah to the old guard, the people that have been here and are established. There's a lot of people who will not fuck with me. And I have no one to blame but myself. But as a result of that, I've had to work extra hard to keep going, man, because I've had all the reasons to stop and quit, because I could have given up, and I haven't, man. I'm still into it, and man, I fucking love it more than ever.
Great. And that's the inspiring part of it. It's somebody that's always been as passionate as you have for that stuff. I mean, why when you brought up Andy Anders's documentary that you talked about that you were making, like, you used to message us or me, or, you know, we would text back and forth, and like, you would tell me specifics about that project that finally happened that you were waiting for, and you would be so excited about, we got this interview, or we finally nailed down this person, and we figured out this or that or the other thing about the case, you know. And it was, you don't ever want to see that fire die inside of a creative person, and it's great to see you still fostering it, because that was the best part of working with you, was always like, it didn't matter what we were working on, whether or not it was the best idea or something that was probably never worthy of being on film, which is most of the videos that we did during the radio show.
I would love to see those, by the way.
There's a couple of them online that you can get. You got to search. You got to do a kind of a deep dive. You know, I have it written down here because I wanted to say that one of our videos got ripped off, and I don't know if you know this. Do you watch the show Rick and Morty at all?
Yeah.
Okay, well, and I see the look on your face right now.
I lied. I know what Rick and Morty is. I've never actually watched it.
Okay, so let's go back to when we were filming a DonkTube episode, and you were a witch doctor in our episode. And do you remember you had a staff that we had duct taped like a rubber dildo to the top of it, and that was like your staff?
And I was shirtless?
Yes, you were shirtless. Your hair was everywhere. And at one point in time, you chased somebody down the hall in slow motion with your staff that had a dildo on the end of it.
I do remember that.
Well, just recently here during the last season of Rick and Morty stumble upon a group of what they're called as slut dragons, who've been exiled from their dragon community for being sluts. And their leader packs around a staff with a dildo on the top of it. And every time he hits it on the ground and it jiggles on the top, it reminds me of you, because we had like 13 minutes of outtakes of you just wiggling this dildo in like a aggressive way. And I'll tell you, man, it was comedy gold. We just didn't know it at the time.
Dang, Rick and Morty. I'm going to write that fucker.
I'm sure that we probably got our video taken down because at the time when we were putting up YouTube videos, we didn't really understand copyright law. And since we were a radio station, we just used whatever music we wanted to. And that just does not fly in the YouTube world. So
no, it does not.
Lessons learned the hard way. But yeah, man, we did a lot. You were an on-site sports reporter for us for one video where we were up on, I think we went up like Spencer Butte or something like that, where people do drugs. And I
do remember that.
You remember that? There was dogs barking at us, and we ended up having to make that like kind of a part of the show because they were barking in your audio almost the entire time. So we've had some fun out there. I'm sure you learned nothing that's helped you in an actual professional filmmaking career from those times, but damn it, they were fun.
I would say that's very untrue. You know, I said it before. Well, I realized it now that we're talking because it's weird. I would come in twice a week and do the show. I would be there for a couple hours. I'd come in the latter half of the show. But I didn't realize how much podcast practice I was getting because I ended up doing a podcast here for a few years. I did 100 episodes. It was called Good Cock, Bad Cock. You can actually listen, by the way. GCDCpod.com. I know it's not the greatest name, but whatever. But I remember, or I know now, like people, when I do podcasts, I realize how skillful I am at doing the interviews and stuff, using the microphone, using my voice in the microphone. And I got so much practice from being on your show because, people would listen and I would listen, I would get to hear my own voice and then I'd be like, oh, this is how it sounds when I talk like this, or if I talk closer to the mic, or if I'm back. And also, I was really trained and I knew to not step on y'all's lines or, I would try and be the second or third banana, I guess. Like I be a contributor and not trying to talk over anyone or whatever. I learned so much, man. And then doing those segments, I remember I did Choose Your Own Adventure.
Yes. Chris Castle's Choose Your Own Adventure, where you would tell a story that happened in your life that was real, and then you would give 3 possible endings to it, only one of them being the actual ending, and the callers would have to call up and choose, right?
Dude, and I crushed. People could never guess. I was so good at it. Because my stories are insane and not believable. But that was really great writing practice. I mean, honestly, man, I learned a lot from being on that show. And for me, it was like, I just come and hung out, and then, watch as some guy would get farted on for Nickelback tickets or whatever. And then I would always have something to talk about on the stage that night because it was always some bizarre shit like that.
Right. And, as the thing about the Donkey Show always was, the reason people liked it is because it's a lot like what you just said. I would just come hang out. And it's a lot of what I want to bring to this podcast, too, is that those types of shows are good at making people feel like they're part of the conversation. And that's why people enjoyed the Donkey Show. That's why people enjoyed, any number of different things that we did. A lot of the times we were just a group of dudes talking, and we'd be you, or we would have other comedians in that, we all performed with and everything. And while we might be discussing world events or farting on stunt guys for Nickelback tickets, there was always just a conversation that made you kind of feel like you were just hanging out with your buddies, and that was always the best part about it.
Yeah, and also made me feel super cool because none of the other comedians got to do it. Yeah.
There was a hand-picked group of you guys for sure, and guys that I really would like to have on this podcast. The few of them come right to the top of my mind: Mike McGowan, Seth Milstein, Dylan Flynn, and Mac Chase. Those guys were always around when we were doing the open mic. They were always doing shows. Great comedians, better people, and I hope that in due time we can get them on the Man Room as well, because they're all out there doing good things too. I mean, I actually was fortunate enough to work not at the same company, but kind of alongside Mike in the cannabis industry for the last 5 years.
Love Mike McGowan.
Great
Love
dude.
Mike McGowan.
Great dude. And we actually, I don't know if I told you this, the last time I was on stage was in 2019 in March. We organized a pot-friendly stand-up show where we had waitresses walking around with free joints on trays. We rented out this space, and I hosted the show. We had Alex Adney, we had Seth Milstein, we had Mike McGowan, and then Billy Wayne Davis flew in and headlined it. And
Yeah, dude, that's right. McGowan and Billy Wayne Davis are buddies.
yes, and we got Billy Wayne Davis higher than fuck. I mean, I put a bong on the stage because I'm the one that put on the show. I effectively produced and hosted it. And I just thought, like, okay, well, it's a weed-friendly show. We're a weed company. Like, I might as well have a fresh bong with just all the weed that he can smoke sitting on the stage. And he got so high that eventually he forgot my name, and I was the host of the show, so it was something that was said quite frequently that night, but he just started calling me Eugene and asking me to load the bong. Hey, Eugene, can you load the bong? And it's like, he was great, dude. It was such a fun show, and you want to talk about a good room? Get 200 people stoned and let them sit there and watch comedy. I mean, they didn't catch everything, but it was still a pretty good crowd, you know?
And you can't really wait for the laughs. You have to wait for the coughs. That's when you know you're killing it. Oh shit, that guy fucking hawked up a lung. That's a good one.
Must have killed it, right?
Yeah, I've performed out in Denver a few times, out in Colorado a few times since I've been down here, and it's the same deal. Like, man, they know it out there. They're like, all right, some comics in from out of town, one of these shows, they're going to eat shit because they're going to be too fucking high. And sure as fuck, man, like several shows where I'm like, okay, those edibles finally caught up with me, and now I'm terrified to be on stage. But man, Billy Wayne Davis, that guy is so fucking nice because I performed with him in Houston, and I ate shit on the rooftop of this bar called the Secret Group in Houston, and he was still fucking nice to me afterward. Even invited me. He said, if you're ever out in LA, man, come get high, play video games. And I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna fucking feel comfortable hitting you up, but okay, bud, thank you. He's so funny, dude. Billy Wayne Davis is a fucking gem of a human being.
Very funny and super humble too. Like, you would not know if you just ran into this dude that he was well known for anything at all. He does not carry himself like any type of celebrity, and was super gracious. I mean, it's like, yeah, we paid him to come out there, and we paid for his plane tickets and lodging and everything, but at the end we were doing the whole thing for charity. We weren't trying to make any money on it, so it was like, to have him be as gracious as he was and thankful for us bringing him out there as he was like, just made the whole thing better, because we got to bring this dude to kind of a unique event, get him really, really high and see how it goes. And it ended up going great. I mean, he was supposed to do 45 minutes, and I think he did like an hour and a half. As we will do. We got him some really heavy indica up there and just kind of slowed the pace down,
Oh, damn it.
But it was a lot of fun, man, and it made me itch so bad. That's another reason I'm even starting a podcast is I haven't been able to get back into radio, and the comedy scene here is bumpkiss right now because of COVID. So this is a way to kind of scratch my itch too. This is what I should be doing. I've felt that my entire life, but right now I can't get a job because I don't have tits. Like the place that I should be working for and the show that I absolutely should be working for, they're looking for a female, and that's it. They don't care about the chemistry. They don't care about the things you've done in the past. And so, it's just, it's all about clicks anymore. And I figured, why not try to do this without a huge corporation over my head telling me what I can and can't say, and who I should and shouldn't talk to. And that way it just kind of, it frees me up. Let's say it's just a hobby for the rest of my life. Fuck it. It's a fun hobby. If you can actually make a buck off of it, that'll be cool too. So,
that would be cool.
Yeah. So it's the Man Room Podcast, dude. You've done it now. You've got the feeling inside your bones. What do you think?
Dude, yeah, man. I mean, as a, Texan outlaw, I say I approve. I'm down with some man shit. I better get down with some man shit. I might be in prison. Damn.
Oh, damn. Well, everyone is welcome in the Man Room. We do not discriminate on gender. In fact, to tell you the truth, this Man Room's really only ever sees my wife. She's the only woman that's ever been in it. So we could use a female guest or two. I would love at some point in time to get to talk to Christine Levine again. She's a great comedian, was one of the first people along with yourself and Andy Andrus that I ever performed with. And I know she's still, I see her name pop up on Andy Andrus's page every now and then. I know she's still out doing comedy. Do you get to perform with her anymore?
No, I did get to see her, like I said, last October at Doug's house. And then she did my podcast, which I did not air. I have not aired her episode. By the way, my podcast isn't about cops. It's good cock, bad cock.
Yeah, so it's not going to be telling stories about run-ins with the law. It's more going to be telling stories about run-ins with other people's genitals, right?
That's exactly what it's about. But I interviewed her for the podcast. Man, we had a great time. Christine Levine and I kind of were on and off with each other a little bit as I knew her. But I really got to hang out with her and talk to her when I was in Bisbee. And, man, she's just the fucking sweetest, man. She said such fucking nice things to me and made me, oh, man, she's just so sweet. And, yeah, I don't see why she wouldn't do your podcast.
Yeah, she's not going to remember me at all. I mean, I was literally nothing when she performed with me, but that reason that you just mentioned right there is one of the things. She said some nice things to me that night after,
fucking nice.
Probably the worst set that I will have ever done in my life, I hope anyway. And yeah, she was super nice about it. And Andrus was too, and you. I mean, like I said, there's a reason that this whole stand-up comedy thing has kind of stuck with me, even though I've been really bad at actually doing it. For the past 5 years, but
now you can't even. What, dude? It's like super lockdown in Oregon, right?
Oh yeah, it's stupid. But you also kind of hope. I mean, look, I hope at the same time. I hope that this is not the case. But you kind of hope that maybe the lockdowns were being used as a political pawn, and so maybe we can get the fuck past those and start opening up this world again. That's pretty tinfoil hat of me for someone that. Yeah, I have a political science degree. I never learned anything about it. It was just the quickest way to graduate college.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing about opinions that I've learned is that they're mostly for ourselves to construct some kind of reality that we can live with and make sense of all the chaos. So I've found that it's not that helpful to share my opinion, but I will say that I don't think things are going to change that much, man. Not this year. I don't think it's just about that last election. I do think that there's a lot of intention behind this that is not meets the eye, and things are definitely not going to be the way they were. And unfortunately, I hate to be a doomsayer, but I don't think this lockdown shit's going to be over, dude. If it's not COVID-1, it's going to be the new baby killing strain, and then this summer coronavirus, Tokyo Drift, and they're just gonna keep fucking hitting us with this, man. And so I'm glad I live in Texas, where they act like none of that's happening.
Yeah, the land of the free, right? The free to catch COVID if you want it.
America's America, baby.
Chris Castles, thank you so much, dude. I want to give you a chance. I know we've already talked about the movies, but we're going to wrap up here. Is there anything that you've got coming up comedy-wise that you want to plug on the podcast before we get out of here? I
am very excited. If you're watching this, and it might be out, please check out Andy Andrus' comedy special when it hits. It's fucking great, dude. It's so fucking funny. It's Andy at his prime. And
sorry to step on you there, but he's always, if you haven't heard of Andy Andrus at this point, do yourself a favor and plug him in as a Pandora channel or something like that, where it'll bring up a lot of his stuff, or just go get it on YouTube, because the dude's he's great, and the fact that he's not more popular than what he is blows me away every time I hear him do a set. Well, also I've heard him do sets where I'm like, oh, no wonder no one knows who you are. No, but so go watch the special, everybody. I fucking love Andy, and he so I'm plugging my stuff. Check out Andy Andrus. This new special is just fucking fire, and I'm really excited to get to have been a part of it. And so that's my big thing. You can listen to my old podcast, gcbcpod.com. I haven't done anything new, but it's super great. I interviewed my mom about her sexuality. Oh. You want something super awkward. Let's see what else. If you're in Texas, I do a open mic every Monday at the Little Woodrow's at South Park Meadows.
and I have for over 4 years now. It's super fun. It's called The Slaughterhouse, and it's brutal. So if you know someone who thinks they're funny, they're probably not, and it's a great way to embarrass the shit out of them. So invite all their friends and family and coworkers, and watch them get eviscerated. Otherwise, yeah, man, I'm here. Hit me up, y'all. Chris Castles.
We will for sure, dude. Chris Castles, thanks again, dude, for joining me. So pumped to get to catch up with you and to know that you're on the other end down there in Austin, smiling still, and we're pulling for you here at the Man Room for that case to get yourself a lawyer that can eat that case and stay up, dude.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Thank you for hitting me up, man. This is a lot of fun, man, and yeah, I'm excited to see where you go with this.
Awesome. We'll do it again soon. Thank you, sir.
Anytime. I'll talk to you later, dude.
Thanks for listening. End of transmission.